Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping right into something that, on the surface, seems almost paradoxical. We're talking about political dynasties in the Philippines.
And a new bill that's supposed to be anti-dynasty. But, and this is the really wild part, the proposal is coming from inside the House, so to speak.
Literally. We're talking about House Speaker Sandro Marcos, the president's son, and Majority Floor Leader Faustino Bojie Dy III.
The Dy Marcos bill.
Exactly. And, the immediate question that all our source material is grappling with is this for real? Is it a genuine reform effort?
Or is it, just smoke and mirrors? A bit of political theater.
And that's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to look past the headlines and get into the fine print, because that's where the real story is.
That's our mission for this deep dive, to help you understand what this bill actually does, and maybe more importantly, what it doesn't do.
So let's start with that central irony, because you can't really ignore it. You have a Congress that is just packed with dynasts.
Overwhelmingly so. And many of them are what the sources call politicontractors.
Right, and that's a key term. It means they use their political power to get government contracts. Public service becomes a family business.
A very lucrative one. So the big question is, why would this group of people, led by two prominent dynasts, ever vote to limit their own power and, frankly, their own income?
It seems like they'd be voting against their own interests.
Their foundational interests. The analysis is very clear on this. A real anti-dynasty law would cut off pathways to power, to succession, and to wealth for dozens of families.
The resistance would be huge.
Immense. And this is where the fine print of the bill becomes so important. Because when you look at how it's actually structured, you start to get an answer.
It all comes down to the scope, right? How narrow it is.
Exactly. The analysts we read immediately flag it as weak or watered down. Its stated goal isn't to end dynasties. It's only to trim fat dynasties.
Okay, we have to stop there. Fat dynasties versus thin dynasties. This distinction is everything. The difference.
It is everything. So a fat dynasty, as it's defined in this context, is when you have lots of family members holding different offices all at the same time.
So national, provincial, local, they're everywhere.
Right. You've got a whole political portfolio across the board. The bill claims to go after that kind of setup.
Okay, so then what's a thin dynasty?
And that's the loophole. A thin dynasty is much more limited. It's usually just, a couple of family members holding positions one after the other, or maybe two at the same time.
So like a father followed by a son, or two siblings in Congress?
Precisely. And the most crucial detail that the analysis points out is that with this specific definition, neither Speaker Marcos nor Majority Leader Dy would be affected by their own bill.
Wow. So they wrote a reform bill that reforms everyone except themselves.
It's a master stroke of political maneuvering, if you want to look at it that way. You get all the credit for proposing reform with zero personal cost.
But not everyone in politics is dismissing it out of hand. We saw some surprising voices supporting the idea, didn't we?
We did. The Hanneman couple, for example, who are a political dynasty themselves, they came out and publicly supported the goal.
But with a big condition, right?
A huge one. They urged Congress to pass the best version of this bill, not just the watered-down one. They argue that the system needs to make room for new blood, for new ideas.
So even from the inside, there's a recognition that things are stagnant.
And that stagnation has real-world consequences. This is where we need to pivot from the political games to the hard data.
The empirical case. What does the research actually say about the impact of these dynasties on everyday people?
Well, this is where it gets pretty grim. The analyses connect this structure directly to socioeconomic outcomes. It's not just abstract political theory.
What's the headline finding?
The key statistic is that poverty incidence is consistently statistically worse in places that have been run by fat dynasties for decades.
So the longer a fat dynasty is in power, the poorer the area tends to be.
The data suggests a very strong correlation. It's like dynastic rule puts a brake on economic development for everyone else.
Okay, but this is always the point where the defense comes up. Some dynast politicians are good. The classic Vico Soto argument.
And the sources tackle that head on. They use this incredibly powerful testimony from Mikey Defensor, who calls himself the wayward son of the politician Mike Defensor.
An insider's perspective.
A very critical one. He basically says, yes, of course there are exceptions. There are good ones, but you can count them on 10 fingers.
So they're the rare exception, not the rule.
Exactly. He argues that those few good examples don't change the overall data. He says the vast majority are, and this is a quote, incompetent, rotten, greedy.
That's incredibly blunt.
It is. He even adds that some are not even of sound mind. For someone from that world to say that publicly it's really something.
It points to a real crisis in governance, a structural decay.
And there's an analogy used in the analysis that just captures it perfectly.
Yeah.
It makes sense. A canal that doesn't flow stinks.
Stagnant water.
Exactly. When power is just inherited, when it's never challenged, generation after generation, it spoils. There's no incentive to be good at your job.
The focus becomes just holding on to power, not actually governing.
Right. And the poverty statistics seem to bear that out.
So if the evidence is that clear, it brings us back to strategy. Why would the Marcos team even propose this? If they know it's weak and designed to fail, what's the point?
The consensus among the critics is that it's a strategic performance. They call it smoke and mirrors, from what they describe as a Ningas presidential team.
Can you explain that term, Ningas? It's very specific.
Yeah, it's a fantastic Filipino phrase. It refers to a grass fire. It burns incredibly bright and hot for a moment.
And then it's gone.
Burns out almost immediately. It implies something that is all about the big, flashy start, but has absolutely no follow-through, no endurance.
So this is, what, a PR move? A distraction?
The critics call it a token and tactical move. The goal, they argue, isn't reform. The goal is political survival.
To get to the 2028 elections.
To get there without being dethroned, as one analysis put it. By putting this bill on the table, they can say, see, we're reformers. It quiets down the critics just enough.
All without actually changing anything that matters to them or their allies.
And it works because of the numbers in Congress. It's a brutal numbers game.
The reformers are just outnumbered.
Massively. The number of greedy dynasts, as the source calls them, is just far greater than the number of people pushing for real change. You even see it in the Senate.
What about the Senate?
One analysis, Riley, described it as a siblings act. But that's how entrenched the family ties are. It's like a series of interlocking family businesses.
So for the majority of members, a real anti-dynasty bill is an existential threat.
Absolutely. Which is why the critics have another name for this proposal. They call it a hallucination bill.
A hallucination bill. That's strong. Why that term?
Because they see it as being completely disconnected from reality. It's this idea of reform that exists in the media, in speeches, in the public imagination.
But it has no actual substance. No chance of passing in a meaningful way.
It's a mirage. A legislative mirage designed to manage public perception while the status quo rolls on.
Okay, let's pull back for a moment. We've gone through the fine print. The bill is weak by design, written by the very people it should target. Is this whole thing just a waste of time then? Just political noise?
You know, surprisingly, the answer from the analysts is no, not entirely.
How so?
While the bill itself might be a non-starter inside Congress, it serves a really important purpose outside of Congress. It could be the spark for a real nationwide discussion.
So, using their political theater against them, in a way.
Precisely. The hope expressed in the sources is that civil society activists, academics, the media can grab this moment.
While everyone's paying attention.
Right. Use the noise from the Dy Marcos bill to actually educate the public. Explain the poverty data. Explain the difference between fat and thin dynasties.
So the goal isn't to pass this bill, it's to build momentum for a real bill down the line.
Exactly. It's about using this moment to build a unified public voice that can't be ignored next time. Leveraging this token effort for future substantive change.
That's a fascinating take. But I want to end by going back to that comment from Mikey Defensor, because it wasn't just about the bill, it was about the entire system.
That was the single most chilling line in all the analysis we read.
He said, government is a sinking ship. And that's the context for all of this. The Dy Marcos bill, this whole political drama, it's all happening on that sinking ship.
It's a reminder that these token moves aren't just about protecting power. Maybe they're also desperate attempts to patch holes in a system that is fundamentally failing.
And that's the final thought for you, the listener, to really consider. The real story here might not be whether this hallucination bill passes or fails. It might be what its very existence tells us about the state of the ship itself. Something to think about.